Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Master Your Mind series. I'm Angela, your host, and I created this series because when I started my online business, I ran into these huge blocks, which were fear and procrastination and doubt, which limited me and held me back. So I had to kind of take a step back and become a student. And what I found is that it was my own mind that was holding me back. So today, I am so excited to introduce our expert, Dr. Don Wood of the Inspired Performance Institute. I was introduced to his teaching at a business conference, and you guys, it is seriously life-changing. Oh my gosh, thank you, Dr. Wood, for being here. I'm so excited.
I am so glad you invited me, Angela. I'm looking forward to it.
Yay! So let's just jump right in. Can you, so first explain to me what trauma is and how does it affect our behavior?
Well, what I discovered, I researched a lot about trauma, and what I had found is that when we have trauma that I call unresolved, the mind has not resolved that issue, then that continues to be used as a resource. Your mind keeps using it and going back to it. It's always searching for anything that looks similar or same. And so there's a glitch, there's an error message. The subconscious part of our mind, which is our survival-based brain, is constantly doing a search of its environment, what it's in, and looking for any potential threats.
Right.
And the glitch in the error message is coming in from memory, because the subconscious mind operates in the present, just like an animal mind. When it accesses memory from 5 years ago or 10 years ago, that traumatic memory is stored in high definition. So it's confusing looking at that data with something that's still happening. Right. So that trauma will affect, and so if the mind thinks that you're under a threat,
right,
it's going to create a physiological response. Fight or flight, fear, anger, whatever that is. And it's an automatic process, yet there may be nothing happening. And so that's taking a toll physically on your body, as well as stressing out your mind. So if you're in a constant state of that fight or flight, if you had a lot of trauma in your life, that fight or flight response is an emergency management system. It's designed to be activated when you're under a threat.
Right.
But if it's activating constantly every time something looks like, sounds like, or you're recalling memory, it's turned on all the time. And that creates stress on the mind and the body. So many women, especially women, men as well, but especially in women, when you hear they have an autoimmune issue, right, I can tell you they've had trauma.
Okay.
And in most cases, probably sexual trauma.
So can trauma be something like maybe just an emotional occurrence? Does it have to be a big, because I think when we hear the word trauma, I immediately think that it has to be some huge instance, an accident or someone dying or something like that. But can it just be a small emotional experience?
Absolutely. It can be a teacher saying a comment to you. It can be a coach that was maybe harsh with you.
Yeah.
And especially as a child, you don't have enough life experience to interpret that they're not trying to hurt you. Maybe they were just trying to toughen you up, right? And so I talk about that experience. I was just at another conference, and I talked about the experience that my wife had where she had a teacher who brought her up to the front of the class and started firing math questions at her. And she froze. So she always felt like, I'm not smart. Yeah, but she's tremendously smart.
Right.
So at the conference that I was just at, I told that story, and a lady came up afterwards and said, you did something life-changing for me. She just actually sent it. You'll see it on our site. She wrote this beautiful testimonial saying, when you said that, I immediately had a reaction. She says, I remember I was struggling in school, and I really, really worked hard to get my marks up. And she says, I worked extremely hard. And then what happened was then she wrote, and she was in grade 4, I believe, she got all her math questions right for months. Right. And she felt really good. And the teacher announced that there was one person in the class that's gotten 100% on all her tests.
Right.
And they said, who do you think it is? And she says, and everybody looked at the really smart girl in the class and said, oh, it's her. Right.
Right.
And so anyway, she says, no, it's her. right? And
Oh,
she says, everybody laughed and said, that can't be, she's stupid.
oh no.
She says, I never changed the way I studied, how hard I worked, but I failed every test after that.
Wow.
And she said, it had that kind of, and she said, when you told that story, it was like an epiphany. Like,
Right.
oh my gosh, that was me. I
Right.
never understood how I could go from being at a perfect score to starting to fail again. And it
Yeah.
was because of that mind filtering through that event. I'm not smart enough.
Wow. That's incredible. So, a series of those smaller emotional experiences where they make you feel bad or feel stupid, how can that affect your behavior as an adult?
Because what your mind does is if that was stored in high resolution, that data, that it was a threat,
Right?
even though that wasn't a threat, but a
Right.
young child doesn't know how to interpret that event. So then it becomes one of those events that the mind keeps using. Like when somebody says, oh, can you do this? The mind goes back and says, how do we do on tests? Oh, we don't do very good, right? And so then it keeps using that event as a resource,
Mm,
which keeps it down, keeps it feeling like, no, we can't do it. And
wow.
so it will avoid any kind of danger. So in her mind, what had happened is I stood out because I had done something really good
Right.
and I got knocked down. So I don't want to do that again.
Right.
So why would she want to go and start doing really good again? Because that just exposes her to the threat and the humiliation and what she experienced. So we'll just keep performing at this level.
Right. And that is so amazing because I can relate that to being an online entrepreneur. And when, you really have to put yourself out there and we try these different strategies and techniques and things. And when they don't work, and I did have this problem myself, I would take that as a hit to my own identity that I wasn't good enough or I could never get past these certain levels. So a series of those kept adding up. And then it was like, well, maybe I shouldn't be an online entrepreneur.
Yep.
That's incredible. But really, it was just my mind having that error message.
And it was trying to protect you, to keep
Right.
you away from risk. Because if we take that risk, we get exposed, we get hurt, right? So let's avoid it. So I had a guy, and you'll see his testimonial on our site, Joel. And Joel was trying to get his business off the ground. He had a health and wellness, cryotherapy, but he couldn't get it off the ground. And he was really struggling. He went through our program, and after going through the program, he did $1 million worth of business.
Wow.
And here's what it came down to. He grew up with very, very loving parents, but they had instilled in him, in order to be successful, in order to enjoy your life, you needed to get a job, get a pension, buy a house, and retire.
Right.
So every time that he would start taking a risk, his mind would create a different path. And well, let's try this. Let's avoid that risk by taking this path.
Right.
And as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure all your listeners understand, there's no business without risk.
That's right.
Business is full of risk. But if your mind has understood that risk is dangerous, right, it's going to avoid danger. So it will keep you to avoid it. So what would happen is he kept changing his plan, his business plan. I'll go in this direction because that's not as risky, right?
Okay, yeah.
And as soon as he got through that, right, and those are parents not trying to hurt him.
Right.
That's just what they did. And so, with the best of intentions, our parents could do things like that. So is that trauma?
Mm-hmm.
A little bit, yeah.
But
it's not the big T trauma that everybody thinks of.
Absolutely. I think that is so important to understand is when we say trauma, it doesn't necessarily mean the big T trauma. And that these small events that can happen to you throughout your life can be causing these blocks. And that's where I was at when I first started in online entrepreneurship 4 years ago. I couldn't even put my finger on why I wasn't able to move forward or why this fear or why the procrastination. But it was really it goes back to a series of small events where I attached it to my identity that I wasn't good enough or it didn't make me feel good.
Yep.
And that's why I just love your program, because that is another thing that it did. It helped me to actually detach my identity from my business.
Yep. I know.
It was
Isn't that amazing?
incredible, amazing. It was like the light shined down from the heavens, you know, like I am always good enough. Just because this didn't work, that doesn't mean anything about who I am.
Right. Right. But that's not the way the mind sees it until you teach the mind that.
Right.
And so, we just had so many different people, explain what they had gone through in their life and how that, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, right?
Yes.
And again, I'll just use a really simple one because my wife had so many of these things. She grew up in a very traumatic household.
All right.
And so she remembers when she was little, there was another little girl in the neighborhood that was having a tea party. Right. So her grandmother got her all dressed up, really pretty, and she went to the tea party, and some of the mothers were sitting there. And so they said to her, "Oh my gosh, like, look at you," right? And so my wife was feeling like she's just little, she's feeling really proud.
Right.
And then one woman said something that absolutely ruined it all, and she wasn't trying to. She said to my wife, she goes, "Oh my goodness, you are going to be a heartbreaker." And then said to the other women, "Don't you think so?" And they're all like, "Yes." But you know what my wife interpreted that as a child? I'm not a good person. I'm going to break people's hearts.
Oh, no.
And as she even told me that story, she cried because the way her mind had held that is that they see something in me. I'm going to go around hurting people and breaking their heart.
Wow.
Right? And that's supposed to be the power of words to children. Yes. And how we can affect our children is incredible.
Oh, I have 3 kids, and the power of words, it is so important that we know this, but also, I just love how, you were saying how, like, okay, so the power of repetition, and when we go through, like, in a negative or a positive way, how important is the power of repetition? Because when we go through these experiences that are negative over and over again, that's when it becomes, is that a conditioned response?
Yes. And here's what happens. We have 2 memory systems. No other animal has that. They all work with procedural memory.
Right.
We have implicit memory. We store tremendous details, events and experiences. We store billions and billions of bits of images and sounds.
Okay.
And so that part of the memory is being used constantly as a resource.
Right.
And so that's what we do in our program. In the first 4 hours, in that 4-hour session, we update, reboot, right? Realign that, right? Reset the mind. So it's no longer storing that high resolution data. It doesn't forget the memory, but it takes all the charge out of it. Right. So the mind no longer responds to it. It just sees it as information.
Right.
But then what happens is because our mind is being constantly filtering through that data, it creates codes, patterns, habits, what we call habits and behaviors.
Right.
And the habits and behaviors of those codes come from repetition on how to adapt to that pain.
Okay.
And so when you just said to me that you procrastinated, that was a code. Your mind said, let's build a code to protect us. And then so if you keep procrastinating, it just becomes a habit, and then you always procrastinate.
Right.
And so what people will tell you is, well, you got to fix that. Well, you're not going to fix that until you fix what caused it. Right?
Yes!
And so what everybody does is manages the symptoms. Procrastination is a symptom. It's not a character flaw. It's a symptom that's come from an experience that your mind has used to protect you.
Wow.
So if I procrastinate, I'm safe because I'll take my time, make sure it's not dangerous, and I'll keep looking at it, analyzing, trying to figure it out, and then you never end up getting it done because it seems like a risk.
Right. Instead of just going for it,
Yep.
Just getting it done. Just go for it because something is holding you back there, right?
Yeah.
And that could be different for every single individual.
No two people are going to react the same way to the same situation. It's what I call, if you remember, I called about our atmospheric conditions.
Yes.
So you can have two people, two sisters living in the same household, but they're still developing different atmospheric conditions.
Oh,
And some may be darker, some may be brighter, but they're all filtering and using those atmospheric conditions as part of their way to process new experiences in life.
wow, that's incredible. So, and something just hit me when you were saying that. So, because there's a lot of information out there about how to release old behaviors, break through limitations, and people just talk about it, and tell you, this is what you need to do, and this is what you need to do. And this is one of the reasons why I created this series, is because none of that was working.
Right.
They would tell me how, or they would tell me what needed to be done, but I didn't know how to do that. And so I kept just going inside and trying to find resources and becoming a student, because I was like, no, I'm going to get through this. I am determined. And it has taken me 3 years. But what I love is that like, what is that response?
Yep. And I've got a second book coming out that talks about all the things successful people don't do. And one of them is procrastination.
Yes.
Right? Another one is they don't blame other people when things go wrong. They take responsibility for it.
Yep.
Right? And the reason, so what I'm saying is, if you have any of these 10 traits that I talk about, right? It's not because you're bad or you're a failure or whatever. It's because your mind created that to protect you about something that happened in your life.
Right.
So all we have to do is now figure out what that event was that created that blaming other people, right? That may have come from a very critical parent, right? Yep. And so you wanted to avoid taking responsibility, because if you were caught with the person who made the mistake, you were criticized. So your mind will figure out a way to protect you.
Right.
Now, all the self-help books will tell you to stay present, be in the moment. Right. But that's not how the mind works unless you train it. And so you've got to clear what caused it to not stay present. And so how much of your mind is present all the time? What we're able to do is to get the mind to reset that data that created that. Once that's reset, then you can build new behaviors. Because if you build new behaviors without fixing what caused that behavior, you're painting over rust. It's going to bubble up through the paint.
Yep.
All right.
That is so refreshing. Yep. It's just so refreshing to hear that, because I think that that's so much that is out there, and people are starting to feel like, how come this isn't working for me? Mm-hmm. And it's not even that. It's because their experiences aren't being cleared. It's just the Band-Aid that's being put over it.
Yep. And if you repeat a new behavior over and over, you're going to build a code.
Right.
But if something comes along that looks like something from earlier, it's not going to use that code. It's going to use the old code.
Okay.
Because we never got that code rebuilt.
Right.
So we have to clear what caused that code and then work on building a new code. That's why we have the 2 memory systems. The 4-hour session is designed to clear it, get it updated, and the audios over the 28 days is now to build a new code. Because if I got the event cleared and then I said, well, now just you're done, you don't have to do anything, your mind will still have that code built.
Okay.
And even though it won't get triggered by the memory anymore, it'll still remember that code. So we've got to rebuild the code.
I love that. It's so nice to know that there is, that there is a way.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're not stuck. And it's the same thing with people in addiction. When I say to people, I don't believe it's a disease. I believe it's a code. Your mind was trying to survive and it built a code. And the code was that this drug or this alcohol drink has something to do with making us feel better. Yep. And if we feel better, we survive. And so now it just builds a code that says, and that's below your conscious awareness, it automatically goes to that code and you start drinking or taking the drug.
That's right.
And your conscious mind saying, hold on, why are we doing this? Right? Mm-hmm. And think of the subconscious mind, your survival brain saying, don't touch this. This is too important, right? You're never going to convince us we don't need this.
Gosh, yeah.
Yep. And then they're stuck. And so the way to get them unstuck is to fix what caused it first.
Yes.
Because AA and NA, I know all the intentions are there to try to help you, but they're building a new code. And the new code is to avoid that substance, stay away from it. And if I can convince you that you're bad, you're broken, you're defeated, right? And that you'll never be better and you need to surrender, right? I would never tell any human being that. That doesn't make any sense. We're designed to heal, right? Our minds and bodies are designed to heal. What's interfering with its ability to heal? Memory.
Oh.
So you could take the sweetest, nicest dog, give it a bone.
Right.
And then 30 seconds later, try to take the bone away from that dog. That dog will bite you.
Right.
Because you just threatened its survival, right?
Come on.
That's not a bad dog. It's just you're trying to take away. He doesn't know if it's ever going to eat again.
Right.
And you just tried to take away that bone from him.
That is so good. I love that. And that's why I love that you say that there is nothing wrong with your mind, especially to addicts. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, because so much of addiction, a lot of different behaviors, but addiction is really full of this. A lot of the way to modify their behavior is to shame them and guilt them.
Right.
And if we can shame them and guilt them, we'll modify their behavior. Religion learned that a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
If you're Catholic or Jewish, I mean, they have a patent on guilt, right? And the purpose of it is to get you to do things differently, right? And so it's designed to get that feeling of guilt or shame when you're going to go use it. But that doesn't really work. That's not how the mind operates at its best. So people in addiction have had so many things that go wrong in their life because of the way their mind is operating, right? That they put their own guilt and shame. Right. And so what I say to them is, based on what's happened in your life, and the way your mind filters through that information, right? It's creating a response based on that information to protect you. So if that information was telling the brain that we need this drug to feel better, and feeling better is going to help us survive, right? You couldn't have done it any other way.
Oh, I love when you say that.
How could you do it any other way? Right? I've never had a drink in my life. I've never touched a drug in my life, but I had no trauma.
Right.
So if I led somebody's life exactly the way they led it, who got into addiction, I'd be in addiction.
Wow.
Right? It did nothing to do with my character or my willpower or my morals. It had to do with the way the mind responds. So I always say to people, if I walked out my front door every day and I ate a leaf off of the tree in the front yard, eventually I couldn't pass that tree without wanting to eat a leaf.
Right.
Right? That's not a character flaw, right? Yeah. That's how the science of the brain works. It's designed to try to keep you alive. It's just got an error message.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It really is. And when you can tap into your program especially, it just, when it all clears, then it just becomes clear. And you're like, what? Yeah.
So I always equate it to, if I have a filter and I take water and I pour the water through the water will come through the filter and it'll be clear.
Right.
But if I pack that filter full of mud and I pour the water through it, the water's going to come out muddy. Oh. So what's wrong with the water?
Right.
There's nothing wrong with the water. It just filtered through mud.
Wow.
Right? It has to become muddy.
Uh-huh.
The water's not choosing to pick up mud and go and pick it up, right? The same thing with the way the mind works. The person's not trying to do this. They couldn't do it any other way. Right. So our goal is to clean the filter. The way the mind uses that data, that resource, all those experiences in your life that becomes the mud. We clear that out and then let the water pour through the filter and it's going to clear.
I love that. That is just, it's beautiful. It just opens up your mind to literally tell yourself that everything you ever did was exactly what you needed to do.
Right. And you couldn't have done it any other way.
Yes. I love that. Yeah. I mean, that is just healing. You know, anyone that even hears that, I'm just like, you're healed. You know, when I heard you say that, it was like you gave me permission to heal myself.
Exactly. Yep. I know. And that's
So
that your mind is capable of doing that healing. Absolutely.
I love it. I love it so much. So tell me, because your program does include some gratitude sessions, and can you tell me what the importance of gratitude is?
Well, once you've got your mind cleared, we clear those events and experiences, then we have you work on building new codes and behaviors.
Right.
Now we've got the mind set up to perform at its best.
Yes.
And when you start now applying gratitude to that, right, that changes the way the mind starts to structure everything. It sees that through those glasses of
Right.
appreciating. And
Yeah.
as Oprah said, when she started practicing gratitude, it was the single greatest life-changing experience she had.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when you start using gratitude, you chemically change your brain.
I love
You
that.
start producing oxytocin, which is a bonding hormone. So you improve relationships, right? And
Wow.
it's a natural hormone, right?
Wow.
It's what mothers have when they're breastfeeding their baby. So the
Right.
baby's getting oxytocin, they are, right? And they're bonding.
Wow.
It's how the brain works.
That's incredible. And the power of the repetition and gratitude is that what rewrites the code?
Yes. Yep.
Oh,
Because then you just start seeing life differently, right? And all of a sudden things just look brighter, right? And it looks like the problems that you thought were problems were not really problems. That's the way your mind was filtering, right?
wow. It's incredible. You just feel free. I know I felt and do feel free. Like I could really do anything, and it's been incredible for me since I've gone through your program that the things that I have accomplished in my business in the short time that it's insane. It's just like, you know what? I can do anything. I can walk through anything because I don't attach anything negative to my person anymore. And I'm grateful for that. So it's like, it's a whole new world.
Yes. And that's what's so good. And the only way to do that is to go through something like this to get your mind to reset. So it's so hard to do that on their own because people try to do it on their own, right? But the mind is going to be not working against you. So when people say, oh, I sabotage a lot, I say, that's impossible.
Right.
The mind can't sabotage itself. It's not trying to hurt you. It's trying to protect you.
Right.
So it's like, well, but if I do things that are not good for my business, right, isn't that sabotaging myself? And they'll say, no, your mind is trying to take you away from danger, but it's an error message. So the procrastination is not sabotage. Your mind is saying, we got hurt when we rushed in last time, right? And so let's not rush in this time. Let's take our time. Maybe things will become easier. Maybe it will, right? And it never does.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, I just love it. So tell me a little bit, because you did touch a little bit on your program, but would you tell the viewers a little bit more about your program and what it includes? Because it is just life-changing.
Okay, so we start off with a 4-hour session. And people say, well, that's a long time, right? But you have to go through the 4 hours at the same time because it allows the mind to get all the updates done. If you come in and out. So the goal is we're getting you into an alpha brainwave state.
Okay.
Alpha brainwave is a very relaxed but focused state. It's what happens when you start reading a book or watching TV. Your mind is super relaxed but super focused.
Okay.
They believe Albert Einstein lived in that state most of the time.
Amazing.
Because that's why information flowed for him. So when you're in that state, you feel relaxed, you feel very focused, and then we start getting the mind to get the updates done. Okay. And it's going to do that when it's feeling safe and focused.
Right.
If you're in a beta brainwave state, your mind is operating much faster. It's got too much going on. So the first hour is all about education, explaining why this is happening, why you're experiencing what you're experiencing. And so once you understand, you go, that's it?
Yes.
Right? There's nothing wrong with me. My mind had to do it that way. Then your mind is open to say, okay, what are we going to change? What can we change? Now things seem possible.
Right.
And then what we do is then in the next hour, we're taking you through processes to get you to feel very, very relaxed, get into that alpha state before we start trying to update some of those traumatic events and experiences. So then once we've got you there, then we take a look at maybe 3 events and experiences that you had that were either traumatic or disturbing. And within minutes, we can get your mind to update that. It doesn't take long. And the best part about it as you know, Angela, when we did we had over 100+ people in the room.
Yeah.
Nobody had to once share what their trauma was. They didn't
It
have
was
to talk
incredible.
about it.
That was incredible. Yes. I loved it. Yeah.
So it's not important for me to know what the trauma is. It's your mind that clears it.
Right.
I'm just giving you the techniques and the tools to do it, and your mind does all the work, right?
Yeah.
And it's designed to do that. It's designed to heal. What's been interfering with it has gotten stuck into an error code. So if I took my computer and every time I hit the M key, my computer shut off,
Right.
then what's wrong with my computer? There's nothing wrong with my computer. It's got an error message.
Right.
I just have to get a new code built so that the M key doesn't shut off the computer, and then it goes back to being a computer.
Oh.
Right? And so during the third hour, we're going to work on those traumatic events and experiences and get the mind to start resetting it.
Right.
And so the way I always explain it is, can you remember what you ate for dinner last night? Right? Do you remember us going through that?
Yes.
Can you remember what you ate for dinner? So tell me what you ate.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, I had fish tacos.
All right. And the great thing about this is we're recording it, so people will know exactly what I just said. You looked up,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And you saw pictures, right, of what you ate for dinner last night.
I saw the picture first. Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Where you were, what you ate. That's how you stored the information about what you ate for dinner last night.
Right.
Everything in your entire life has been stored like that.
Wow.
Now, because last night wasn't a threat to your life, right? It may have been a great taco, but it wasn't that great, right?
Yeah.
No threat, right? So your mind stored that as a fairly low resolution file.
Right.
Had that been a threat to your existence, your sight, your smell, your hearing are all intensified.
Okay.
So how does that record it? High definition, very bright. And that's what's confusing and creating a glitch, because your mind sees this tremendous intensity to this detail and starts responding to it as if something's happening now.
Right.
So what we do in that hour to get the mind updated is we get your mind to reprocess 3 of those events into the same format as what you ate for dinner last night.
Right.
And then when you go to sleep at night in theta, you go into theta brainwave state where the mind does dreaming, but it also processes what it learned during the day.
Right.
Now starts taking this new information and starts applying it to all those events and experiences. And the mind just automatically updates it.
It's amazing.
Yep. And then in the final hour, we then say, okay, now we've got the mind set up. We've got the slate cleared. We got a new base. We're ready to go, right? Let's work on performance.
Yep.
Tell us about your highlights in your life. Tell us about your goals and targets. And let's get the mind now using that as its resource. And we do that for the last hour.
I love that so much. Using the highlights as a resource.
Yep.
That's so good. And then you have a 28-day audio that follows that enforces repetition, right?
Yep. And keeps building on what we just learned and strengthening it.
I love
So
it.
if you want to become stronger, just like you got to train your mind to keep reinforcing the tools that you just learned.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. So tell the viewers, you have a bonus gift for them for watching this. What do you have for them?
We have 2 different gifts. One could be you get our book. The book that I wrote was called You Must Be Out of Your Mind. So you get the first chapter of that, right? And that's the whole idea, is we want to get you out of your mind.
Yep.
Or you can listen to one of the audios and get an experience how the audios work. So it's either one. And that's a free gift for your listeners.
Either one is so life-changing, and thank you so much for that. That is just awesome to get a gift like that. It's just life-changing, especially when you're in this mode of feeling stuck and not knowing where to go or how to find the answers. And your program is priceless. There's not an amount of money that I would have paid to get through what you got me through.
Wow, that's so good.
Oh my goodness.
And that's what Shanda said. Even Shanda said, "Boy, I would have paid a lot more money for this." And I said, "Really? Okay."
Oh yeah.
Now it's too late to charge her.
It's priceless, because years of research and not being able to do that on your own, and you did that. It truly is a gift. And so I am
and that's why we call it a performance program, though. So just to give you a quick example, I worked with Tim Burke, who's a long drive golf champion.
Yeah.
And he went through our program. He hadn't won in 2018. So 2019, he came in and they told him to come and see me. We took him through the program, and every tournament he played in, he made the finals this year, and he won 2 of them. But he got to the finals of every single tournament.
Wow.
Right? That was unprecedented.
Wow.
And he just played in the World Championships. He lost in the finals again, just that one time, right? But he's there. He just said that's the best year he's ever had.
Wow.
So that's why we call this a performance program. It's not therapy. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your mind. Let's just get it performing at its highest and best level. And we can absolutely do that.
Oh my gosh. It's like applause.
Here's a great example. One of the other things I said to him is I said, do you think you need to be confident to play good golf? And he said, yeah, I think so. And I said, what if I told you that wasn't important? And he says, confidence? He said, I don't need to be confident. I said, confidence is a byproduct of skill.
Love it.
If you execute your skill, right, you have confidence because you're executing. If you build your foundation on confidence and something goes wrong, what happens to confidence?
Yes.
It starts to crumble underneath you.
Out the window.
Yep. So he says, well, what do I need to do? And I said, I want you to develop an attitude of optimism.
Yes.
I said, you're a professional golfer. There's nothing that you can't do on a golf course. You can hit every shot available. Right? I said, so when you use optimism, for example, if you hit the golf ball and you didn't know that the wind was coming down because you couldn't feel the wind yet, and the ball got knocked down into the bunker in front of the green,
right?
And you start thinking, what did I do wrong? Right. Well, when your mind starts questioning what it did wrong, it starts to go into a different response, right? And then confidence starts to erode. But if you develop an attitude of optimism, you go, no big deal. I'm an amazing bunker player. Yep. This isn't a danger to me.
Oh, so I love it.
Now you just start executing on your skill, because you can't build on confidence, but you can build on optimism.
Oh my God. Like you just took a whole nother healing out of me. Like
awesome.
It's just incredible. I mean, really, that is the things that you say are so life-changing, and they're simple. And yep. What I love and I'm so passionate about is bringing healing to people who are stuck in this pattern of their own mind giving them error messages. And for you to come in and just clear it in a matter of hours, it is my pleasure to interview you. I am so honored. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed meeting you and look forward to you helping other people heal.
Oh, it's the whole mission, forget about everything else. It's just the mission,
Beautiful.
That's it. So I just want to thank all the viewers for being here and watching. And you guys stay tuned for more of the Master Your Mind series. We are going to have so much more coming for you to help you with your healing and to burst you through those limitations. Everybody enjoy every single moment with gratitude and love. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Take care.